Okay, we're live on Facebook. Good morning, everybody, or good afternoon, wherever you are in the world. So this is Everyday Buddha. This is your host, Eddie Matsumoto. And today's guest is Marc Leavitt. So let me just read a little blurb here. He is a friend of my friend Gary. So I haven't really talked to him directly up until today, but I read his book, the first one. But actually, I'm in the middle of reading it, and I'm looking forward to reading some more. So he's the author of the Reality Explained trilogy that takes you behind the scenes of enlightenment, the story of a working family man who was spontaneously thrust into non-ordinary states, revealing visions about the nature of reality. So that sounds really exciting, just right up the alley that my audience is interested in. So, um, so I definitely, I looked at Gary's interview, but I haven't really, directly heard your story. So definitely I want that juicy, meaty part. Definitely I want to spend, plenty of time on that. But I do have a few burning questions. So I'm not sure which one I should go. I can hear your story, then ask you some questions, or I can ask you some questions. Do you have any preferences?
Well, why don't you start with a couple questions, then I'll tell you the story. That way I could gauge it based on your questions, and then you can come back to more questions.
Okay, that sounds good. Okay, so number one, it's more like because you are may not be necessarily emphasizing, but you mentioned that you're working man, you don't have to separate the enlightenment versus this worldly life. And then you mentioned that you're married, you have a daughter, and you work. And then you mentioned sleep study. Because I work in a hospital, I still do, and I worked with it closely. With the sleep study people. So I'm just curious about that. In what capacity you work in the sleep study area?
Oh, okay, absolutely. Yeah, thank you. I'm a registered polysomnographic technologist, which means that I run basically studies that measure people's breathing, or work with their oxygen, CPAP titrations, or sometimes daytime studies. Basically, people not being able to sleep, whether it's due to breathing issues or what's called a parasomnia, which means you have sleepwalking or sleep paralysis, or sometimes just daytime sleepiness. But it's basically patients that are coming in because they're not able to sleep due to either breathing or due to daytime sleepiness. And then we just basically put a bunch of wires on them, study through the night, and then increase their CPAP or BiPAP, depending upon the patient. But it's very quiet. I like it because it gives me hours to study and read and do my own thing. You only have about an hour of patient interaction, and the rest of it is monitoring stuff. So I've been doing it since, gosh, my daughter was born, so about 25 years almost. And it's really just meshed with my lifestyle very well. So I like it.
Oh, wonderful. But it's a highly skilled, specialized area. And
Yes.
I specialize in endocrinology in my practice. So half my diabetic, probably more than half of my diabetic patients have sleep apnea. So I'm very familiar with the people. I'm sending them, all to, you gotta get the sleep study. Yeah, and then it's so rewarding. Well, it's kind of hard to adjust a BiPAP CPAP machine. But this is a little bit off the subject. But my point is that this is really life-changing for some people, what you're doing. I guess it's not a day job, it's your night job, but it's your day job,
Yes.
if you know what I
Yes,
mean.
absolutely.
Yeah.
Yep. Well put.
Yeah, but it really changes people's life. If they can sleep, they have a much better quality of life. And then if you sleep poorly, you're sleepy all the time during the day, don't have energy. So I've seen a huge change in people's lives, with the help of sleep study.
Yeah, I think it's appropriate and almost poetic for me, because you're right. Sleeping is the other half of our life. And most of what I talk about in my book is the missing other part of our life. We have a whole missing part of our life we're not aware of. And it's the same thing with sleeping. Sleeping is the whole other part of our life. I've always been mystified that even when I was little, when I was a young kid, I even speculated that we were not really at our home. We were away from home, but we couldn't be away from home. So sleep had to be introduced So at one part of the day, we'd always go back to home where we really are, and then have this experience of waking life. But I find it very symbolic. There's something very deep and mysterious about sleep, and necessary. It's the, the yin and the yang. And I just realized how poetic it is to my overall thing, which is that there's a other half to our lives that we're missing, just like sleep is a missing half to our lives. It completes our experience.
Yeah, definitely. And I think you mentioned that lucid dreaming, or
Yes.
you mentioned the out of body experience. So it's something other than what we usually think of as our life. So they go to work, eat, but huge other parts that maybe unconscious for the other half of life. So
Yes.
so you do that, at least part of it. You monitor the breathing, you monitor maybe EEG, the brain waves.
The
So
brain waves.
I think that's kind of I was wondering, if that's somehow related to why you are interested in pursuing spirituality, because that's sort of a subconscious, the other half of human experience, that type of thing. So
yeah. Well, like you said, I when I was young, I was definitely always interested in sleep, and I always had an intuition that sleep was built into this program, because we couldn't possibly be away from our source for too long. There has to be that pulsation, that that back and forth, because it's one thing, but it has two phases. So sleep, and it's all life, but life has two phases: a quiet side and an active side. So the quiet side just completes our complete cycle of life. But also I found it very valuable just in terms of my personality. I'm an introvert. I like to be by myself and like to think a lot and contemplate. So it just really I think it came into my life and found me, so I could live the very unique life I'm living now, where most of my life is reading, studying, and writing and things like that. So it gave me an opportunity, one, where I could be helping people, and also be helping I think on a bigger level.
Right. Yeah. And sleep is such a mysterious thing that we don't know why we sleep and what dream is about and what's happening in your brain, in your body when you're sleeping. So we take it for granted only because we sleep every day. But it's such a unknown, lots of unknown.
And like you said, you're not conscious for it. You're not conscious for it. So it's a mysterious. So very very interesting.
Yeah, very interesting. Okay, and then my next question is about the cover of the book. And so you really generously, share your work. You really diligently, wrote this trilogy, and you're sharing with the world. And also you have a YouTube where you read all the books, and you're sharing with the public. So I think it's extremely generous. But also, I'm sure you have a message in it, and we want to get back to that a little bit later. But I'm an artist, as you can see. I have some paintings out there, but that's why I'm struck by some of the visions. And well, first of all, the book cover, and then I'm sure I saw the artist's name, another Mark with a K, right? Your artist for the cover.
Yes. Well, I actually had to design it. All the illustrations and covers I had to design from because I'm the one that saw them. The book cover is actually the vision. So it took quite a bit of time. That's why it's taking a lot of time with the third book. He's still having a hard time. I have to try to convey something that I experienced that's non-worldly, and try to communicate it to an artist who knows his experience. So I had to design it, and he had to execute it, because I'm unfortunately not a good artist. But I need that medium to express something that's otherwise inexpressible. And I tried to go to my share screen to pull up the book cover to show, but I couldn't. I don't know if it's important for you. If you want, I can show that real quick.
I can certainly try.
But we don't have to spend much time. I wasn't sure how easy it would be.
Okay, let me see if I can do that quickly. So let me share my screen. Let's see, share Here's screen, and here's the book cover.
Oh, there you go. Okay, so you did it. Thank you.
Okay, so here is the book cover. So it's like a kaleidoscope, and so there's I'm assuming it's you, so holding the book, and that there are different aspects of life, playing sports, working on the beach. Maybe this is meditating, driving, maybe your daughter. So I think it's really it reminds me of John Kabat-Zinn's Full Catastrophe Living. So like you have everything going on in life, and so these are different aspects. But that's my kind of interpretation of it. But as the artist who designed this, so tell us more about this design, this art.
Okay, thank you. I loved how you used the word kaleidoscope, because I'm very fascinated with kaleidoscope. I don't exactly know what kaleidoscopes are, but I've always been fascinated with the concept of a bended mirror. I feel like the whole universe, everything in reality is just a bended mirror. And if I'm not mistaken, I think that's what a kaleidoscope is just a bended mirror. So I'm happy that you brought up kaleidoscope. But getting back to the picture, the reason I designed this was to try to capture what I actually saw in the vision. I called it the diamond vision to describe the experience of enlightenment.
Okay.
But I'm going to back up before a little bit, before I get to that picture. I had another experience where I saw in 360 degrees, meaning I saw behind me at the same time I was looking in front of me. But what behind me was all blackness. So I had another experience about a year before this experience where spontaneously I was playing my guitar. I was singing a song that was very devotional. The George Harrison Beatles song, My Sweet Lord, I Really Want to Love You. So I was singing a very devotional song on my guitar, being swept up in the way of love and devotion. I was just carried away in this peak of moment of just, love and appreciation for reality. And I heard a voice, a disembodied voice in my head, which I've never had before in my life. But I had a disembodied voice right in the middle of this peak say, look behind you. And as I'm playing my guitar and enjoying this euphoric moment, I hear the disembodied voice say, "Look behind me." I go to look behind me, and instead of seeing my wall or the living room that you expect to create or see, instead I saw nothing. I saw the void. When I looked behind me, there was nothing behind me but unmanifestation, zero. And then in front of me, I saw the world that was there, the living room, which I was looking at, was now just a screen. So I was still seeing the living room and everything that I see in normal life, but it was at a distance. There was a little bit of a distance, maybe only a foot or so of distance, but enough to make it clearly like it was a screen that had been standing up to my whole life. So it's basically like you walking up to a movie theater or a drive-in and having your face so close up to it that you think you're in that world. And then suddenly you step back and you realize, oh, that whole thing that I took to be a world, me being inside of, was actually a screen that I'm so close to that I have no choice but to see that I'm in the screen. So one of these pictures that you see on the behind scenes book cover was my first vision. I saw that I was just, all of my life, my body and everything was just on a screen, everything I've ever experienced, and there's nothing behind us. The picture that you saw now that you had up was a second experience that I had later, where again, I was spontaneously just sitting with my daughter on her back deck, looking at the mountains. I just gotten off work. It was probably like 8 o'clock in the morning, maybe 7, something in the morning. And I'm looking out at the mountains. I have my daughter on my lap and I'm just looking at her. And I'm always contemplating at this time in my life, how could we be one? Like I'm not privy to your thoughts. I'm not privy to your view. I'm not privy to any of your experiences, but I know we're all one, but I couldn't understand how we are one when all the evidence was to the contrary. So I'd been going through this for really hard for a year in my life, just looking at everything and trying to understand how the one manifest as money? If we're all the same, how am I not privy to your experiences? How is this getting pulled off? How am I hiding from your knowledge? How am I not seeing what you're seeing? So about a year being obsessed with that, I'm not going to spend too much time on this, but what really helped me was something called a Trikaya. It's a principle in Dzogchen, which is a Buddhist teaching. But I noticed that all religions have a sort of a triune, a trinity. So the Trikaya is the Dzogchen specific trinity. And that was just a really good way for me to understand how the one manifests as many. And again, I don't want to, it's a sidetrack. It's more of an intellectual discussion. But since I was so obsessed with that, I was staring at her, wondering, how am I not privy to your thoughts? How are we not one? And as I'm doing that, all of a sudden, my perspective was thrust from what I'm normally seeing right now to behind her eyes. So all of a sudden, spontaneously, I was no longer seeing from behind my eyes. I was spontaneously seeing from behind her eyes, seeing the angle that she was seeing. But, and this is something that I haven't thought of until, afterwards. But I wasn't really aware of her thoughts. Like again, she was young, she was probably only, 3 or 4, so maybe her mind was quiet, but I wasn't aware of any internal dialogue or her thoughts, just purely what she was seeing. And then in the next moment, I was backed up even further and not just seeing what she was seeing, which was one of those circles that you showed on the book cover, but all of them at the same time. I backed up so far that I saw, not only was I seeing from her perspective, but my neighbor's perspective, your perspective, the chicken's perspective, the star's perspective, each blades of grass. I backed up so far that I saw that I was the one eye behind all of the eyes. So in reality, there's only one eye. There's only one observer looking behind every single eye. And that's what it looks like. That's what it looks like when you're back and you're not anybody. And another thing I want to point out too, is when I was backed up seeing that I was the one eye behind all of these for infinity, I was not aware of the specifics of what's going on. Because like I said, it's too general. It's too specific, I should say. This was something where it's completely silent, and instead you're just looking through every single eye at the same time, but void of any details. Once you zoom in on one of those, that's when all the details come in, all the specifics. But for a few minutes or however long time I was experiencing it, I was so far back that I was seeing that I was the eye behind every single eye.
Wow.
And when I say behind every eye, they don't even have to have technically eyes. I could see a grass, perceiving, and you're perceiving whatever that was. So, and then after that, so after that experience dissolved, when I came back to the scene from my perspective. But then the final perspective, I was once again looking at the mountains as I was before all this started. But now that I was looking at the mountains, I didn't see the mountains as mountains outside of me. I saw them as my body. I saw everything, the world. I felt, I should say, not saw, but felt everything as my body. And I mentioned this, hopefully I mentioned in the first book. I Googled it, and scientifically, there's a word that we have called a Preoccipital Sense, and it's a sense of our body. Like right now, we have a sense of weight and orientation, and it's a Preoccipital sense. It's a sense of having a body. That's what I still feel, but for the world. I feel like the world is my body. So when I'm looking out there, it feels like that's me. So the mountains were my toes, the grass was my tummy, you know what I mean? The water is my hands or whatever. So you're looking out in the world and you can't help but to see the world as your body, which is another illustration in the book that we'll get to. But I think that's a good time for me to stop and let you ask some questions.
Okay. Actually, I was hoping that I can find that pictures on Amazon, but I couldn't. So
if you share screen, I have them up if you want. I don't know how easy it is.
Yeah, absolutely. I'm just gonna make you a co-host, and then I think you'll be.
Oh, you know what? Ironically, I may not even have that one.
Oh,
oh, I do. Actually, I do.
Okay. Oh, good. So if you can share, when I looked at it, it just reminded me of Headless Way, Douglas Harding.
Yes.
made a, very similar picture.
Yes,
Yeah.
absolutely. Yes, yes. I love Douglas Harding. So there you go. I had three. I don't know if you could see this. You had three versions, and none of them are satisfying me, which is why I did so many. But this is one that I want you to feel like if you're looking down like
Yes.
this, and you're looking down at your body.
Absolutely.
That's the world. When I'm looking down, I feel like my world goes out, and the toes are in the very distance.
Yeah.
Again, I'm not really satisfied. I've had another one done for the most recent book. This is the second attempt, but this
Okay.
is the best way I can convey the feeling like the world is your body.
Yeah, I can feel it. No, I think it's great. If you just put colors and make it a little more realistic.
Yes,
Yeah, I
absolutely.
think that's part of the reason I was really interested in talking to you to have this, because that's sort of what I'm trying to do, to convey some reality, not the
Yes.
typical way of reality, but how can
And
we express it so that other people can kind of sense what we are seeing or perceiving. So I'm glad that you're doing that, attempting, although, but you may not do the artwork to present yourself, but you're conveying your designing and give it to the artist. And then
yes.
so that person is trying to do that, and then that goes out to the world. So I think that's amazing. I think that a lot of people, more artists now hopefully will be doing this. So it's sort of a way back, where I'm thinking when you go to Europe and go to churches, they have all this, almost gaudy, or the bright gold and silvers and all kinds of things. They're just the way of they're trying to convey the glory of the reality of or God. So human have to kind of share amazing experience in some way. Language is limited, but we want to share the experience or convey something, the message in some other way as well. So I am really impressed, that you're trying to do that, not just word, but with the art. So yeah. So
Thank you. No, I'm glad you said that. You said something that really struck me. You were talking about it should be something tangible, something you feel. It is something that all of us are experiencing. So I think it's really just about pointing back to something that's already there. This isn't about, introducing something new to you, bringing something new to you.
yes.
What all this is about is something that's already there. It's just trying to point to something that's already there so you can notice it. And I don't know if I think you could see the sharing picture.
Yes.
That was the first experience that I had where I saw in 360 degrees, where I see that the world's in front of me and there's nothing behind me. But I wanted to go back to your part about the art. The reason I rely on this art so much is because of this dynamic that I'm convinced that all of us are experiencing this. It just goes unnoticed from over the noise and all the distractions that we have. So I think art is a perfect medium to point us back to what we know already is familiar, but maybe since it's so familiar, we overlook it.
Yeah. Yeah, I agree. And I just say, I think the art has a different way of being perceived by human brain. Right brain, left brain thing. Probably you're more familiar with the, brain wave type of thing. The language is perceived in certain parts of the brain, and the art goes into different parts, and music goes to different parts, or some of them just go straight to the heart. So we tend to rely on language a lot. But if we can express things in art form, then that can reach different parts of the brain or different parts of the human being as wavelengths. And then maybe more people can perceive somebody who can't quite get it. Even if you're lectured, listen to somebody's talk 1,000 times, maybe they didn't get it. But looking at just that one picture and the backside is void, and that might do something to somebody's brain. Like, that's what it means. So that's what I love about art. That can kind of go, kind of circumvent, go from the back door or different doors, to get into human. Yeah.
And also everybody has different ways of learning.
Yes.
And we're so used to ourselves that it's very easy for us to try to teach people in the way that we learn. because that's the way we learn and it's just easy to assume. And that's why I try to come out of my experiences and try to just rely more on universal experiences that are there for, you know, everybody and every aspect of life, because that's the main point of what I'm trying to share, is that this is it. We're already here. What we're experiencing is it. Even if you die or you go to heaven or anything, it's still going to be this. It's just our minds. It's just appearances. It's just experiences. But this is it. This is the experience that we're having. And like I said, I think the biggest mistake that people make in spirituality is thinking that they're looking for something else, something extra. And what I love about Eastern philosophy and engaged practices is that it emphasizes that it's already here. It's who you are. It's what you're living from. So it's really just about what's noticing or what's already there, instead of thinking that something has to be added. Because and maybe that's my projection, because that's really the way I felt for a long time. I thought there has to be something extra, something additional. But I like how you emphasize the art and the tangibleness of everyday reality, because that's what it really is, life. I mean, this is life. We're here. Life is what it's all about, and this is it. So
yeah, so you are kind of going in that direction, but the other question I had is, what's your, or should I say, do you have a mission? What are you trying to convey by this? No, it's a lot of work, you know. I think it's you have a full-time job and you're writing this trilogy, you're working on it for years and years. So what are you trying to do? You know, I kind of seem to know that you mentioned a little bit, but you're trying to you know, in detail, as you mentioned, in slow motion, you're going step by step, your experience. And then, but also at the same time, you're trying to, you know, in conclusion, seem like, you know, this is it. And a working man with a family can do this. You don't have to have a separate life. Your enlightenment is not out there, but, you know, this is it. So that's sort of what I feel that you might be trying to convey. But I want to hear that from your own word, what your purpose or mission, if you have any, or why you're doing this.
Thank you. I appreciate that. And I see that as a two-part question, because writing the book, there's a whole question of why are you doing that in the first place? And then a second question of why are you back here now, 10 years later after you wrote the book, all of a sudden, you know, generating publicity and actively putting yourself out there. So it's kind of a two-part question. The first part question of why I did it was kind of an accident. All the experiences, everything in the first book that I wrote about happened around a 5-year period, maybe less, from 1999 to 2002. So everything that I wrote about happened in that time period. In 2010 to 12 is when I started to get so far away. And also I should point out that after I had that last experience with enlightenment, after that I stopped participating in groups, internet groups. I stopped reading. I've never read since then. I stopped meditating. Basically, all of my practices and everything stopped. Then I just really just got back into nature and living out in the mountains with my family, and had zero participation in any groups or books or anything like that. So after almost 10 years of living like that, I started to realize I was forgetting most of the experiences, and my daughter was getting to the age that she was starting to have questions. So I thought, you know what, I should go back and remember and write everything that happened down, so I could have this. And then when I did that, I sent that to an author who was already established, so he could look it over to see if I was saying it, if my words were expressing it. And then he was the one that encouraged me to put it into a book. So that was the first, to answer the first part of your question. The reason I got it was just for myself, to kind of compile it and to have it there so I could forget about it. You know what I mean? Kind of, it was for me so I could have it, put it out there for people. It's because I know people want to hear about it and I want to share it. But I really wasn't in that frame of mind, but I just wanted to put it together so I could share it in the form of a book. So I don't have to talk to you. Here's the book, you could read it. All right. So that goes back to my original motivation. But after I did that, then it became an official book, and it started to get into the publishing part and the advertising, the marketing. And at that point in my life, I couldn't do that. I wasn't equipped. I was really, we were out and living in nature, and I was really just not of the mindset that I was prepared to do what I'm doing now, get into the, publicity part, the work part. So I just dropped out. I wrote the first book and the the most of this book 2 and 3. But after I realized I wasn't interested in talking and doing everything that I'm doing now, I just stopped everything. I never completed the books. I just went back into my life, went back into nature. And I'm glad I did, because I was, able to reach even deeper insights from the triune. Now we're getting back to the second part of your question, which is why I back now sharing. So after 2012, when I wrote the book, I found that I didn't want to really be a writer or a talker or do what I'm doing now. So I just dropped out. Went back to nature. And then 10 years after that, I started to feel really bad. I started to feel like I was withholding. I started to feel like I was not sharing of myself, not giving of myself. And this is all from Jordan Peterson, just to let you know. I started watching videos with Jordan Peterson, and I started to realize I'm really not, I'm blocking myself. I'm not open. I'm not sharing to the world. I'm withholding myself. I'm very, let's just say withholding. I can't think of a better word, but, and for whatever reason at that time, I just knew that the right thing for me to do was to fully express myself and to share myself and to give of myself. So that's when I decided I'm going to finish those books. I just want to, give everything of myself and just put it out there just for the satisfaction of that. And now with the intention of just having fun instead of getting roped into this thing of now you're a writer or an author and doing all these things. I was like, you know what? I'm going to do it under my own terms. I do have to have a publisher with China and Taiwan because it's a different language and I can't translate it. But for in America, I am able to retain my own publishing things. So I just decided I'm not going to worry about the, working aspect. I'm just going to have fun, talk about it. So to answer the second part of your question, why am I doing it now? Because I feel like, number one, it's fun. And I feel like it's the second part of the experience. I feel like I was given a gift of seeing this experience with the triune and being able to see things that I haven't seen in books. The only thing I want to write in my books or talk to people about are things that I haven't already seen. There's already tons of good books on enlightenment and truth and reality, non-duality, but there's a lot of really cool things that I haven't seen out there. And I guess I'm feeling like I want to complete it by talking about all the wonderful gifts that I've been shown to me. I want to let them pass through me. So sorry for the long-winded answer, but
okay, that's great. A couple more questions. So one thing is you mentioned publisher. So the reality publisher, is that your own?
That's me, yes.
Okay, because I guess that because that logo looks just like the picture you showed us.
Yes.
So the half, circle with the void, dark, light and dark half, and the bottom half is black. So that's void. So that I thought maybe you created your own publisher.
I did.
Okay.
Yeah.
Good. That made sense from the logo. So that's one question. The other one, well, this is more like a comment. But especially being an introvert, being out there talking, that's not something you really want to do or you don't have the desire to do. But I think it's coming from, you mentioned hoarding, but also I may want to put it in a way, it might be you're feeling it's a disservice to the humanity if you hold it back. So you have the gift. If Douglas Harding didn't put it out there, nobody knew that, wonderful things, and Richard Lang is not gonna, continue on with that tradition or the methods and spread it out on the internet. A lot of people benefiting from the headless way, just like that. So if you hold back, in a way, you're doing disservice to humanity, but just putting yourself out there, even if it may not be the thing you wanted to do. You didn't grow up, wanted to be famous, you wanted to publish the book, probably it's not like that. So it might be uncomfortable, but, by, putting yourself out there, and then, I can hear about you, or the finders people can hear, and then they're fascinated by you. And maybe people who watch your YouTube, hundreds of people seems to be watching your YouTube and commenting on it. So I think you're doing service to humanity by putting yourself out there.
Thank you. I appreciate that. Thank you. It means a lot to me.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So, and then also, your twist, as I mentioned earlier, putting the art, the picture, figure. I think that speaks to some people more than language, itself.
Yeah.
So, I have one more question I really wanted to ask. So, as we were going through the course, that Gary and I went through the same course, and some other people in the group, and no, we were in this model. There are different locations in terms of enlightenment or awareness, and that there are some kind of divisions. It's not like a what which level is good or bad or better or
Mhm.
worse, but at some point, if you go deep into it, you might lose like a personal love. Maybe you might lose like a intimate love feeling, like you may not love your spouse or daughter the way you
Mhm.
used to. So you
Mhm.
still love them in a sense, maybe more like a general humanity, love for humanity, or care, deep care. But it's not like a clinging attachment kind of love anymore. So have you felt any transition before and after your experience, the love, the form of love, how you feel about your daughter or your wife or family or friends?
Well, I look at all of that as just part of the experience. So if you go back to the picture that I have with the void behind us and the picture in front of us,
Mhm,
I would say that the love that we have for our family or the love that we have for our particulars, that's out there. That's something you experience.
mhm,
So the love that we feel, the appreciation that we feel, all these things are just experiences that are in us. So I think the biggest thing, the biggest difference between the two would be the perception that you take yourself to be a person
mhm,
loving other people, and the perception that I have now is just I'm aware of the contents, and some of the contents are the love that I have for my daughter, the love that I have for my wife, but they're contents. Those are feelings. These are experiences,
mhm,
and experiences, are being watched, but they're changing. So, if anything, I would just say that the difference is my relationship to life and my orientation to life, my physical orientation to life, to
mhm.
where uh, how I see them is not really any different. It's really just how I see my own experiences. And so how I see my own experiences is I'm experiencing love, I'm experiencing appreciation, but these are just content in me as awareness. So it is just more content as it comes and goes. You think about them and then you're thinking about something else, but you're aware that you're just the changeless space for the thoughts that come. And these thoughts are, like I said, most of the time, if you're living at home, it's going to be of the same familiar things. And that's why we come to identify with um the look at it this way. We just had 4 pugs die, and even having them die was excruciating, because
Mhm,
it's a part of your life, it's a part of your experience,
mhm,
and now it's not any longer. So now your experience, at one moment you're having an experience, oh, I love my pugs, I'm enjoying this, and now I'm left with the experience of, oh, I'm missing my pugs and I don't have them and I'm sad, but now that's the experience. You
mhm.
see what I'm saying? It's still
Yeah.
me, it's still an experience, it's nothing's changing. There's always just me, there's always just awareness. And then the awareness goes from, oh, that's great, look at the pugs, the pretty faces, the cuteness, and then the story changes to where I miss them and I don't have them. But it's always just experiences happening in the mind, because that's all there really is. Everything that we're experiencing um, is just us in our imagination as we're seeing it and as it goes. So I really don't even really draw a distinction
Mhm,
between life and my experience, because
mhm.
that's all there really is just the aware space for these thoughts and feelings that come and go.
Yeah.
Um, but I don't try to, that's another thing I really make a point in book 2, is to not to try to cling to happiness, or not to try to cling to enlightenment, or not to try to cling to anything, because you already are the aware
Right.
space.
Right.
You don't have to work at it. You don't have to try to add anything or perfect it. Just spend more time, I guess, taking notice of the space that you're already there. And you'll see these thoughts are just there. There's my whole mind of thoughts, or like I said, I'm loving my daughter, I'm missing my dog, I'm sad, I'm happy, all these things, but I'm not trying to control them. I'm not trying to prefer them. Well, and I like to get that on onto a nuance too. Like, let's say I'm not trying to prefer them. You could go to a restaurant and you could say, I prefer the crab cake. They
Yeah.
don't have the crab cake, but now you don't prefer to have that preference. Now I don't prefer whether I get my preference. You know what I mean? You can always take it back a level. You could prefer to have cold water versus hot water, but if it's cold, I don't really prefer to have my preference. You know, I
Yeah.
thought I wanted this, but this is it. So now this is what's happening.
Yeah, I forget that. Right, right. Okay, yeah, this is so much fun. So it's getting to be 42 minutes. So it could be the last question, but we'll see. So you mentioned that when you were, maybe after you wrote the book, or maybe even before you wrote the book, you were not doing anything. You're living in nature. You were not even meditating. So you're not pursuing anything. You're not seeking anything. So what about now? Do you do any practice, so-called practice, meditation, anything, or you just live, experience life, that this is it?
No, to this day, I still don't meditate or read books, but I think that's going to change. I think I am going to start meditating. And if I do read books, it would only be Zen. I think Zen is the only language that I could read, because I don't like books that are trying to take you from A to B. I like books that just talk to you like you're there, like they just describe reality. So I do think I want to get back into reading Zen, and I do want to get back into reading and meditating, but not for me, but for others. Because another realization I've had is the Bodhisattva Vow. I don't know how familiar you are with Buddhism, but in Buddhism, it's very important to have the Bodhisattva Vow, because it puts in the context of why you're being spiritual in the first place, why you're seeking all of this. So in Buddhism, they have the Bodhisattva Vow almost as a tool. So once you do get enlightenment or get close to enlightenment, you realize that you're here for others. You're here, that others are you. There is no sense of otherness. If you talk about others, they're you. So there is no trying to escape from something. So with the Bodhisattva Vow, the reason I'm finding that very appropriate to my life is I'm realizing to do everything not for me, but for the whole. So not for others, but for the whole. So I'm the whole, and to do everything for the whole. So now I'm starting to realizing that I should get back to meditating, because it is very powerful. And see, here, the whole reason I'm stopped meditating is because I'm not trying to get anything anymore. I'm not trying to build anything. I'm not trying to create anything. But now I'm realizing for the whole, I do want to work. I do want to, like I said, open up, and whatever energy I could create, it'll be for the whole and not for me. So little things that I'm doing already is spontaneously now, when I'm getting these overwhelming feelings of joy and this intense energy, instead of feeling it, I don't even feel it. I just let it pass right through me, because I feel like in some way it's going back to the whole. And I'm starting to feel like if I do meditate and do these practices that I used to do, it will bring up that energy, but not for me, but for the whole, if that makes any sense. Like if I don't experiencing it, that energy goes to the whole. If I don't, because when you're experiencing something, you're using up that energy, like gas in a car. You're taking gas and you're burning that gas up. But instead, if I don't burn that fuel up that's coming to me, this incredible energy that's always coming to me, I'm feeling if I don't burn that up by experiencing the joy of it, it's somehow filling up the whole. So I do want to get back into meditating and reading. And perhaps this vacation that I just did a week vacation on the beach, and I felt really recharged. And when I say I don't meditate, it's not really that I don't meditate. In Zen, they don't even call it meditation. They just call it sitting, because in reality, you're always meditating. Just sometimes you're sitting, and then you're sitting, and then they call that meditation. So in reality, I don't want to mislead you and say I don't meditate. Anytime I stop thinking about anything, it's already meditation. I'm just, most of the time, I'm working something out, I'm doing something. But if it's not, that is meditation. So I don't want to say that I stopped meditating. I stopped sitting, let's say that. But I do think I do, now that I've spent this time on the beach, I'm getting attracted to just sitting for the sake of sitting and allowing this energy to pass through me.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I understand that. So walking on the beach, walking in the nature, taking a walk out there, that's meditation, just living. Even in the middle of some chaos, you still,
Yeah.
meditate. So yeah, definitely.
Yeah. Anytime you pause and you just watch, that's meditation. Anytime you just witness what's ever happening, that's meditation. So I think when people think of meditation, they're thinking more sitting meditation.
Right.
And yes, I do think I see that in my future. Absolutely.
Yeah, that's part of the question. So I said, do you still practice? But in a sense, whenever you're in touch with your true nature, you're meditating. So whatever you're doing, right? Yeah, awesome.
And I just, like I said, for me, I just fell in love with awareness, my mind. So maybe it went from, thinking I was never meditating instead of just always meditating, because it was more just a love affair with just the spacious mind that we are.
Mm-hmm. And sometimes when it becomes more your normal, so you don't have to
Yes.
actually sit, because you live
Yes.
the meditative life. Your life is meditation in a sense. So you don't actually
Yeah.
kind of cut a piece of your life and put it aside and call
Yeah.
it meditation. So you don't have to do that. You're just living it.
So yeah, exactly. So it's really just about noticing, really. It's just about noticing, because it's always there. It's just about whether you want to take notice to what's always there in the first place.
Wow, it's been so much fun. I want to wrap this up. So do you have, now that you're Bodhisattva, so as I understand it, you could kind of get out of this circle of life and then just be happy and nirvana, but you're here to stay, for the rest of your body's life. So you're going to, meditate, sit, and you write books, you talk, you do YouTube. So you're just kind of passing on your way of expression to the rest of the people who are drawn to your message. So you're going to be here. So would you like to say something, kind of concluding words, last word for the audience, something that you want to convey?
Okay, well, as far as I just want to convey is just that this is it. What you're looking at is it. So what I mean by that is when you dream, it's still the same mental landscape. If you're having an out-of-body experience, it's still going to be you back here looking at the content out there. Even if you die and go to heaven, it's still going to be you back here looking at the heavenly objects out there. No matter what, life is always just this awareness that you're experiencing right now. So yes, there could be many wonderful, celestial realms and other realms, but it's all right here. It's all just imagination. You're never going to be anywhere that you're not sitting perfectly still as a witness to all the colors and shapes that are happening, whether they be this world, whether they be a lucid dream, an out-of-body experience. It's always the same, of just awareness, taking in, colors and shapes, and then telling our stories about them. I am going to start a website. I don't know if that's also what you mean by what I like to tell people. I do have a website now. It's not completed, but you can go to it. It's called thisawarespace.com.
Okay. Do you have a website to share that you can show, or I can just put in a chat later?
Oh, I cut you off. I didn't hear your question.
Oh, do you have the website? Do you want to screen share right now if you have an image, or I can just...
I don't, but it's just 3 words. It's just this aware space.
Okay.
So, yeah, just anybody wants to type in thisawarespace.com, THIS aware space. And it's going to be a message board. So if anybody wants to have questions, I answer the questions. I'm going to start podcasts as soon as I can.
Okay. Great.
I hope, I keep saying that. And what else? They could learn about the books. But I think that's the main thing that I wanted. The emphasis of book 1 is, like I said, this is it. That everything you're looking at, this is it. Heaven's going to be this, your dreams, this is, you're already here. There's no other place. The emphasis of book 2 is it is and it isn't. So anything that could be said, it is and it isn't. There's nothing that you could say that doesn't also have a contradiction. It isn't, kind of like the yin yang. And then the third book, the emphasis, everything has a triune. And what the triune is, that everything has an essence, what it is, and then everything has a function of what it does, and it has a fruit or result of what it appears as. So the three things that my three biggest lessons that I've learned were: 1, this is it. That's book 1. 2, it is and it isn't. That's like the yin yang. And book 3 is more the triune, where everything has an essence of its isness, what it is, what it does, and what it appears as. So if I had to sum up, that would be the sum up of my philosophy. So
have you completed the third book as well?
Yes. Again, the book 3 is complete. Even the illustrations are done. My book illustrator for the cover has been really slow. I'm just waiting on the cover, but the book is done. It's complete. And actually, I read it to everybody. It's so done. You could go on YouTube, and I've already read the book maybe a year ago. It's already been done. And I'll also send it to anybody. If anybody's curious, I'll send it to them in a PDF before it gets published. You know, I've always sent my books out before they're published. So yeah, if anybody wants to reach me, thisawarespace.com, the message board, and I'll be doing podcast. But that's it. That's the only thing. I can't think of anything else.
Wonderful. Okay, great. Yeah, thank you so much. So it was very, fascinating and meaningful conversation. So maybe we can do this again sometimes, because I really had enjoyed talking to you today.
I would like that. I enjoyed talking with you. Absolutely. Thank you so much for having me. I really do appreciate it. And I enjoyed myself. So thank you again. I appreciate it.
Okay. Thank you so much. Okay.
Bye-bye.
Take care. Bye-bye.